It seems strange for me to be doing a video that would be directed towards gun safety for children, but I see this need for it, and I see the need for it because I see comments under videos when I use this gun in particular. And I can tell that there's just a lot of children out there and adults that really don't understand guns and think that all guns are bad, and they aren't all bad. Some are very useful, and some are harmless. There's 7 guns, 7 different guns. Most of them are shotguns, some of them are handguns, but statistically, if you have one of these in your house, you are statistically, you have a higher chance of being injured or killed. That's a fact. But to label everything the same is ridiculous. Now on this table, out of these 7 guns, some guns are more deadly than others, and some of them aren't really deadly at all. Now you see I do not have an AR on the table because I don't own one, because why would I? Doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't really need it. Every gun, almost every gun on here is for sporting. Most of them are shotguns. This gun in particular would be a gun that a lot of people use for home protection. This is also a kid's gun. It's small. So kids, if you see a gun like this in your grandpa's house, or don't touch it. Don't touch it. It could be loaded, because it's very common that people want these for home protection. So it could be loaded. See? That was loaded. You pick this up, you could hurt yourself, you could kill yourself, you could kill somebody. So that's the #1 rule. Don't ever touch a gun, kids, unless you're with your parents. Don't do it. Now, in my house, it was a little bit different than most houses. My father had a curio and relic license. The first time I shot a gun, I was 5 years old. And I shot, I believe it was either a 44 or 357. I can't remember. It was a Ruger 357, I think. And I remember I was 5 years old. I could barely hold the damn thing out. My father was behind me, helping me keep it up. It was so heavy. And I shot it, it went up over my head, and I wanted to shoot it again. All the other kids that were shooting didn't want to do it. I was into it. Me and my father were a lot alike in some ways. In some ways, we were nothing alike. Very much alike, but we had differences at times about things that I still, to this point, I look at my dad as like a very flawed individual, which I'm flawed, you're flawed, we're all flawed. And I'm sure that you look at your parents as like, you know, they're not perfect. And that was my dad. He would say racist shit. I hated it. I couldn't stand it. And still to this day, I cringe when I think about him talking about it. But nevertheless, my father was really good with a lot of shit and spending time with me. I wanted to go hunting and fishing, and I like guns, so I caught on real quick. Safety is the most important thing, and you never want to have a gun like this and point it in the direction of anyone or anything that if I'm hunting with Ike and I have a gun like this, I don't have the barrel even close to his direction, or Tonka. So you never point the gun unless you're going to shoot. So you got to be careful, and you can walk with your gun up like this. And if you're going over a fence or something, you're going to set the gun down before you're climbing over the fence, and then retrieve the gun when you get on the other side. It's very important. And all guns like this, they have a safety. This has a safety, and if the gun is open like this, you can see that there's not a shell in the gun. So that's a safe way to store your gun, because you know that it's empty. Same thing with a gun like this. If it's open like this, you know that there's not a shell in it. It's not going to harm you. But statistically, if you do have guns in your house, statistically, you have more of a chance of being killed than a person that doesn't have a gun in their house. But statistically, if you didn't drive a car or get in a car or go on an airplane, you'd be maybe safer too. Do you see what I'm saying? Most like deaths by gun are suicide. That's the truth. So when you look at all the, statistics as far as guns go and deaths by gun and death by car, it's about the same amount of death by getting in a car and driving a car. So just because you have a gun doesn't mean that you're gonna, just because you have a gun doesn't mean you're gonna get shot in your own home. But you could, it happens. All these guns are similar. These are a little different over here. These are shotguns, and all of them function the same way except for this one. This is a single shot. You get one shot, that's it. Like I said, a lot of people use, these are kids' guns. This is what I had when I was in first grade. I had a Winchester 28 gauge. This is a 16 gauge. My father was the kind of guy that, like, if we were going duck hunting, he wanted more power, not less. So he wasn't gonna buy me a 410. He bought me a 28 gauge. That was my dad. In second grade, he had me shoot this. This is a 12 gauge. This is a Browning A5. It's probably one of the best designed guns ever produced. It was produced for over 100 years. I believe the patent was maybe 1889. You'd have to check, it really doesn't matter. But it went into production, I think, in the early 1900s, and all the way up to maybe like 2003, they stopped producing it, and just recently, they brought it back in. They're producing it again because it's such an awesome gun. This is a semi-auto shotgun. It can hold 5 shells. However, there's a plug in it, so you can only put 3 in because that's migratory game loss. You can't be shooting 5 shells unless you're hunting blues or snows. Then there's so many of those. They want you to shoot as many as possible. Then they allow you to take the plug out. But that is a federal law. If you're caught hunting without that plug in your shotgun, you're going to be in big trouble. Same thing. If you're walking around with this and it's like this, there's no shell in it, it's empty, it's safe. You would still, when you were walking over the fence, you had to get over a fence, you would put this down just because of habit. That's true. That is very true. But to say all guns are the same is absurd. In other words, a heat gun that pulls off paint from the side of your building. If you point that at anybody, are you going to hurt anybody? No. What about a cap gun? This looks real, right? From a distance, this might look like a pearl-handled revolver from a distance. If you're a kid and you have this gun, even though that it can't hurt anybody, kill anybody, or do anything, you could get shot by just having this in your hand. That's a fact, and it happens every year. There's some kid playing in the park with a toy gun or a BB gun, and the cop comes and shoots them. That's the facts, kids. Nowadays, I think that it's a law that you have to have an orange thing on the end of this gun, saying it isn't real. This is not a real gun. This is a cap gun, okay? There are guns that are guns, but are like totally harmless. You watch movies, right? Those are guns. Those are guns just like this, right? But it's used as a prop. So when they shoot the gun, there's a shell in it that doesn't have any projectiles. Now this shell, to the 16 gauge, this has projectiles in it, and they're little lead, they're not lead BBs actually. No, these are probably. Lead BBs you can use for hunting upland game, but for waterfowl hunting you have to use non-lead shot, because the lead shot goes in the lake and then the ducks eat it because it looks like some kind of seed, and then they get lead poisoning, and then it just fucks up their egg production. It's not good. So, but you can use lead when you're shooting pheasant or some quail, something like that. But like if this was say this was a prop gun, right? This wasn't going to be used to shoot anything. you would still put a shell in the gun, but there would be no projectiles in there. There would only be powder. So some wadding would come out. You know, if you were standing right in front of the barrel and fired this, you would burn the shit out of someone. Still could be dangerous. It's just a fact. This is the gun in particular that got me to do this video. This is a 22, but it's a 22 starter pistol. But by me having this in my hand, it looks sort of real, like if you didn't understand guns, or you were at a, like if you were a cop and 50 feet away, you would probably think this was real. But this isn't real, and it boggles my mind that people don't understand. I'm working with a dog. This would be like me waving this around going, yeah, the dog over here. This is harmless. This can't do anything other than it's loud, so don't fire it by your ear. And they're like, you're waving that gun around, you're gonna hurt somebody. Are you kidding me? I'm a 56-year-old dog trainer that's been around guns since I was 5, and you're talking to an adult on the internet. I'm sorry, but like I want to take this time real quick to say something. Kids, I understand you're kids and you want to be adult and you want to think that you know what you're talking about, but because you're doing video games and shooting people on video games doesn't mean you know anything about guns, or you know what a real gun looks like or doesn't look like. It's very clear that this has electrical tape on the handle, you know? Why? And another thing, kids, why would I be firing, if I'm working with a dog and I'm in my backyard, why would I be firing a gun off in my backyard? I wouldn't. That's why I'm firing a starter pistol off. These are blanks. These are blanks. There's no way to even fit a 22 short in here. See, it's no projectile, it's just powder. This could still get you killed. Somebody could, and most of the time these with a orange tip on them. Lots of them do. Most starter pistols have that nowadays. But this, statistically, if you're walking around with this in your pocket or it's in my car, and the cops stop me and they say, do you have a gun in the car? I'll say, officer, I have a starter pistol in here to train dogs. And you know what the cop will say? Okay, that's fine. Just don't, we don't need to see it. Where is it? Don't try and get it. That's it. They don't even want to see it. It's a starter pistol. It's like, it would be the same thing as like saying, officer, I have my son's cap gun in my car. It's the same thing. Okay, well, don't go for it because it'll look sort of real. So this might look real to a kid on YouTube. Like, oh, look, he's got a pearl-handled, you know, tiny revolver. Like, you know, this might look real to the kid on YouTube. Look at that. He's training his dog with a gun and he's shooting it off into the air and he's pointing it at a... He's pointing it all over. He's Mr. Dangerous. I was sort of known as Professor Safety. I was years ago, back when I went to art school. I do like to cut wood, and like if I don't have glasses or anything, I'll cut wood with a saw and just kind of look up, you know. A lot of guys out there know what I'm talking about. I have a grinder and I'm grinding metal, but I don't really have any eye protection, so I just sort of like look away while I'm grinding. A lot of us have done it, and I'm not saying that that's good. But when it comes to guns, one of the biggest problems I have with like hunting with other people is other people are not safe. They aren't. I worry about the other person I'm hunting with. It's the truth. All of these guns, I want to talk real quick about this shotgun in particular. By the way, both these Browning A5s are the two guns that shot Bigfoot in 1953. I have a standard 12 and a 3-inch here. That is a 2 3/4-inch shell. This is a 3-inch shell, and this is a 3.5-inch shell. The 3.5-inch shell has more firepower for sure. But this gun in particular, this is a Mossberg 935, and there's a lot of confusion about this gun on the internet, and it's good because I get to talk about this. Now, when I bought this gun when it first came out, I bought it for goose hunting. It's a really great gun for goose hunting. The recoil isn't too bad. It takes 3.5 inch and 3 inch shells. And that's all it takes. And on every gun, it will say this on the barrel. It will say this, takes chambered for 3 inch and 3.5 inch shells, 12 gauge. All guns have that printed on the barrel. That way you can know what shells it takes. This one, it says the same thing. It says 16 gauge, 2 3/4 full choke. Full choke, we're not going to go into that. That's not that important. That's important if you're hunting birds. But every gun says that. Now this gun in particular, this is a Remington 1187, and this says on the barrel that it takes, let's see what it says. My glasses are wet. 12 gauge, 2 3/4, 3 inch, or 3.5 inch. This shoots all three of those shells that I showed you. It can shoot this one. It can shoot the 3 inch. This is 2 3/4. This is 3 inch, and this is 3.5. It shoots all of them. This, the Mossberg, is only chambered for this one, the 3 inch, or the 3.5 inch and the 3 inch. That's all it's chambered for. Now, with that said, not most actually, most guns are produced and then they don't really change. This thing, they did very little design changes on this gun for 100 years. They waited until they took this one off the market to start changing it, and they changed it a little bit. So when you're buying a Browning A5, you're not buying a Belgian Browning. This is a gun that was produced in Belgium. It's used in many wars. This is a fantastic hunting shotgun as well as a weapon. This is a weapon of war, very effective in jungle fights. It's great. You got to be kidding me. If somebody's coming in your house and you have a Browning A5 and it's loaded and you have 3 shells in there, you got to be kidding me. Whoever's coming in your house better run. It's a fact. Very little design changes over the last 100 years with this gun, like none. They changed the stock a little bit, that's it. Both these are Belgian Brownings. Most of the time, you're gonna see the Belgian Browning, it will have a stock where it's rounded like this. So it isn't clear, and I've done videos on this subject a couple of times, and that's that the Mossberg 935 is not made for 2 3/4 inch shells, but there's people that are shooting 2 3/4 shells trying to prove a point that the gun will shoot them. Yes, but it doesn't function well now, does it? That's the same thing with this gun. This gun will shoot everything, and it's rated for everything, but it doesn't cycle low brass. So this gun, here's where the confusion is, that they have a manual that says one thing, it's on the gun, but then it also says that on their website, it says that it can shoot 2 3/4. The point that I'm trying to make is that with this gun, it's very clear on the barrel what it shoots. 3 inch and 3.5 inch. There's even a manual that says the same exact thing. So it says it right here in the manual. Right? So what do we gather from that? What we gather from that is that there's a problem with the company, that they have this issue where it says one thing on the gun, it says one thing on the manual, and it says one thing on the website. So which is it? You don't know. That's the point. I've contacted the company. I don't have an answer from them yet. But when I get an answer from them, I'll do another video talking about it. But the problem is you don't know. So if you don't know, what do? What's stamped on the gun? 3 inch and 3.5 inch. That's it. That's all you would shoot in that gun. This barrel is bored out to almost 10 gauge. So you wouldn't want to put a 2 3/4 in it. So I'm not really sure why it's on that one place on their website. It could be a mistake. I'm appalled that Mossberg would have a discrepancy like this, the gun, the manual, and the website. Now, a good question would be, well, did they retool this gun, the 935 Super Mega, make it into something else so that it could do 2 3/4? Like I said, I bought this right when it came out. I don't know. But you shoot what's on the barrel. That's being safe. That's being safe. It might just not cycle. In other words, you shoot, this is a semi-auto, so when you shoot, it pops out. It might not pop out, it might get stuck. But you shoot what the gun is rated for. You don't just start putting whatever in. That's such a mistake. I just talked to Mossberg about the 935 and this discrepancy in 2 3/4 shells, 3-inch shells, and 3.5 shells. When the gun first came out in 2004, it did only shoot 3 and 3.5 inch. And then they wanted to compete with Remington's 1187, so they redesigned it so that it will shoot 2 3/4. If you have the older model, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. Don't do it. It's not gonna work. You should never do that. What are you gonna do? You're gonna put a 2 3/4 in a gun and turn it into a single shot? It's not gonna work. I find it appalling that Mossberg would do that, that they would take the gun, keep it as the 935, and then put it out different. Just, if you're gonna make a more versatile gun, call it something else. So now there's this confusion out there. There's the guns that were bought right when they came out, like mine, and then there's the guns that are later that are like the 1187. Mossberg, you get what you pay for. I'm not saying that it's not a good gun. It's a good gun for goose hunting. I like it. It's one of those guns, it's not expensive. If you drop it in the drink, you lose the gun. You're not losing it's probably a $500 gun or something like that. But it's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. Browning would never do anything like this. Never, ever point a gun at anyone. But I find it absurd to say, like, toy guns still exist. Kids are obsessed, male children obsessed with, playing Army Man and, Cowboys and Indians. I don't think that exists anymore. That's like 1950s. You're the bad guy, your friend's the cop, and you point the gun and shoot. Would it be any fun if you weren't pointing the gun? Oh, there's your friend, I'm gonna shoot him. I'm shooting you, but he's way over here. It's ridiculous. So a toy gun, if you're gonna let your kids have something like this, and kids, if you have something like this and it doesn't have the orange thing on the end, statistically, there's more of a chance that you're gonna get shot than the kid that doesn't have this in their hand. It's a fact. But I see parents letting their kids ride motorcycles out here I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. This one kid's like jumping, it looks like he's in 2nd grade and he's jumping a motorcycle 6 feet in the air. I would never let my kid do that. Are you kidding me? I'm not saying that my kid couldn't have a fake gun like this, but he probably wouldn't. If I was gonna give my kid a gun, I'd get him a real gun. I wouldn't get him a fake gun. I'd teach him gun safety like my dad did. I had guns in my own room. But something else that my father drilled into our head, to me, I was the one that was into guns. Peter, never take a gun to school, no matter what. You don't take those to show your friends. You don't do anything like that. I know, Dad. I know. I get it. Don't ever take a gun to school, kids. If your dad has guns, or you're allowed to have guns, don't ever take a gun to school. If you're old enough to drive and you have that gun in your car, come on, man, you're gonna get in trouble. Don't go on school property with a gun ever. It's a huge problem. It's become like this trend of like children that are, and I mean children, I mean anybody that's under 18, they load up a gun and want to go shoot people. It's absurd. They need higher security at the high schools. That's what, and all schools. I really don't understand that. Most people have some kind of security system in their home, and their security system might be a gun like this. So if you had a guy at the door that had a gun like this, and he stood around all day, ready for the maniac to come in, maybe the maniac wouldn't come in. And I know this sounds like everybody thinks that I'm the super libtard or something. I've voted my whole life Republican. My whole life, I'm a conservative. Except once, I didn't vote Republican once, but I didn't vote for him who's in office right now because he lies too much and he's still lying. That's it. I'm all about people having, you know, guns and gun safety and your right to bear arms. If you want to have the AR-15, go get it, but I think it's ridiculous. Listen, I think it's ridiculous anybody that wasn't in the military have an AR-15. That's how I see it. My neighbor's got an AR-15. He was in the military. He trained on that gun. He wants to shoot it. He collects guns. That makes sense to me. He's not out playing army man. But you were never in the military and you need an assault-style rifle? Why? I don't know. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get these kids going and shooting people up. I don't get the freak in Las Vegas that killed all those people. I'm sorry. I just don't get it. Me, in a perfect world, you should be able to go into a hardware store and buy a gun like this. That's where these came from, my dad told me. He said they were bought in hardware stores. Browning A5s, you could go in an Ace Hardware and buy something like this. That's how I think it should be. You still can buy guns in Walmart, which is, you know, that's cool. It's not, these aren't doing anything. They aren't doing anything. They're relatively harmless. And I know how this sounds to like people that have been involved in a mass shooting. I get it. But they're relatively harmless because I own them. So I create this harmlessness with not having them loaded and locked up, or in a place that, you know, if I'm gonna have one or two or three, whatever. If I have them out, I don't have children in the house. There are no kids in the house. Ike or Mango or my Raven Sam cannot pick this up and shoot it. He cannot fire this gun. He'd have to pull this back. So for me to have guns for protection in my house, I got one less problem because I don't have children. If you got kids and you have guns, man, you better be drilling them constantly be talking about this. Don't touch the guns. Don't touch the guns. Maybe your kid was like me, you know, and maybe your dad was more like my dad, and you're drilling it into your kid that, you know, it is your gun, but you know, it's not a toy. It's not a toy. You don't break it out to show your friends. You know, none of that should be happening. Kids, if you see a gun, if you see a handgun in particular, a lot of accidents happen with these. Even a gun like this, it could be, that means it's ready to fire. If you pull the trigger, oh good, thank God. If you pull the trigger, it'll go off. Some guns, like a semi-automatic pistol, you might be picking it up, it's got like a really hairpin trigger. All you have to do is touch that thing, it's gonna go off. Bam! Then your friend that's standing over here while you're holding the gun gets shot and you kill your friend. I have a friend, he lives in Jamaica because the kid next door, he was fucking around with his friend had a .22 and shot him. And he got like millions of dollars from the insurance company, now he lives in Jamaica. That's the brighter side of getting shot and being able to live. You have to be careful, Don't point it in any direction, with the exception of like if it's a prop and you know it's a prop and it can't take a regular, you know, bullet, You can point it wherever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Same thing with this. Same thing with a salad shooter. That's a type of gun. A heat gun you pull paint off with, point it at whoever you want. But something like this, you always assume it's loaded. Even if it's like this, you still don't point it at anybody. You never point it at anybody or anything just because you know this is a real gun, and you get yourself in the habit. It's discipline of I never point it at anybody or anything unless I'm gonna shoot. You could also carry the gun like this. You're walking through a field, you could carry it like that. You could carry it like this. You want to have it up. If you have it down like this and you're carrying it like this and you trip, the barrel goes into the ground, you pull the trigger, it's gonna blow up, you're gonna get hurt. Keep the barrel up, keep it away from everyone. And don't assume this. This is a big mistake. Is pellet guns and BB guns. I don't have anything out here right now, but some of them can go faster, right? The velocity is faster than a shotgun. I am not shitting you. They also make a 50 caliber air gun, but even the small air guns, the 177s, the 22s, you kill somebody with that. The 177, that goes in somebody's eye, it's going in their brain, they can die. It's a fact. That's not a toy. That's not a toy either. That should be handled the same way as this. Does something come out of the gun, kids? Does something, I don't even care if it's an airsoft. You don't point that at anybody. If you want to point a gun at somebody, it has to be something like this, a prop, okay? Or a starter pistol. You know that these don't have any type of projectile in them. Okay? I hope you all learned something here, and I hope that you all get a good gander at these two guns that killed the only known Sasquatch that we have, that I have. I have the only physical proof of Bigfoot, and they were shot with these two guns right here. No, they are not for sale. There's no way I'm selling these. Absolutely not. Be careful. Hey, guns, gun sports are fun. It's a great thing for the family. There's other countries where it's very popular. Like I look at like Sweden and Germany where they shoot match. Those are really beautifully, I shoot match too. I just don't have any match pistols or match rifles right now. But they shoot a 177 projectile. It's a family thing over there. There's a lot of shooting. It's like a family sport. Over here, not so much. It's more about like, it's not about accuracy. It's about like, how powerful is the gun, not how good you can shoot. It's the way it seems to me. It's all about like, how many guns can I own? How powerful is the gun? 9 times out of 10, I go hunting with somebody that are a terrible shot. They're absolutely terrible, and I bet most of the people on here that shoot a rifle use a scope, and the only reason why you would have a scope is if you're shooting it, really far away. And most of the time, you're not going to be shooting something that far away. If you can't see the whites of its eyes, don't shoot it. Because you might miss, because you're probably a terrible shot, because you have a scope on the gun. It's ridiculous. It's like I see people that put scopes on everything. A scope on a handgun, a scope on a shotgun, a scope on everything. It's ridiculous. Just be careful, be safe. Assume that the gun is loaded. Always assume the gun is loaded.
Don't shoot, whippersnapper, don't shoot! He shot me in my cooter! Get him, boys! He shot me in the poontang!
These are the only 2 guns known to have ever shot a Bigfoot right here. These are Browning A5s. They're beautiful examples. It's a Belgian Browning. It's gorgeous. No, it's not for sale. See, it's right on the gun. 16 gauge, 2 3/4. 12 gauge, 2 3/4. That's all it takes. Here's an example of 3 12 gauge shells. And each shell has a bunch of BBs in it, and those are the projectiles. If you want to give the NRA if you want to give your if you want to give the NRA your money, you go ahead and do it. I was a member for like 48 years, and I stopped giving them my money because I saw what was happening. You want to keep giving them your money, you go right ahead. That's your business. It's also your prerogative if you want to vote again for Trump. I didn't vote for him for a reason, and the same thing is true of the NRA. I stopped giving them money for a reason. Do whatever you want. It's your business, but you do have the right to bear arms, and I'm all for it. Kids, if you see this, just be safe.